In the midst of a bloody and horrific battle, the patriarch Jung of the Sunwoo clan stands drenched in his own blood after a fierce attack. With a face covered in blood and tears, he listens to his opponent's mocking laughter, who scoffs at him for being the patriarch Jung of the Sunwoo clan, yet only using techniques from other clans like Ching Ching and Daeon Kong. The enemy scornfully wonders if the patriarch Jung has forgotten his clan's famous style, the 13 Swords of Sun Wo. The opponent, a demon from the Blood Demon sect named Du Tong, is revealed, sitting coldly amidst the massacre. Beside him stands the fourth son of the Sunwoo clan, Du Tong. Asks Gi if the secret martial art was passed down to the patriarch Jung. While Gi admits he has forgotten, Du Tong bitterly describes the Sunwoo clan's patriarch Jung as a despicable scoundrel who brutally and mercilessly slaughtered his own relatives. Du Tong then turns his attention to a little girl, threatening Jin, now revealed as the last patriarch Jung of the Sunwoo clan, to kill her with the same cruelty. The girl is revealed to be Sun Woo Yan Ha from the Seum clan, standing firmly and holding her sword. Jin looks at the scene in despair as the ghosts of his fallen clan members appear behind him. In a state of collapse, Jin apologizes to someone he calls Commander, admitting he could never be like him. The memory of his commander's words comes back to him, urging him to stand tall and not blame himself for the outcome, and the true defeat lies in giving up, not in losing. Thanks to these words, Jin gathers his resolve and decides to fight to the end. Realizing that if he were captured alive, he would become a mere puppet in Du Tong's hands, and that this fate might one day befall his commander, Jin decides he cannot let that happen. In a moment of heroic despair, he decides that if death is inevitable, he will die on his own terms, and grabs a dagger to end his life. Du Tang stares at the scene in shock and disbelief, wondering what he is doing. Jin declares that although Du Tang may kill him, he will never be able to use his body, vowing to kill him even if he becomes a ghost. Du Tang screams in denial as Jin commits suicide. In his final moments, Jin laments his life, wishing he had lived it more fully and not wasted it. Running away from confronting his brothers, he regrets not allowing his talent to flourish freely. As his consciousness fades, he suddenly hears a mysterious voice calling him a scoundrel. Jin suddenly finds himself in front of an older man shouting angrily in his face, calling him a scoundrel and asking if he has anything to say. Jin wakes up in a state of confusion and shock, believing he is now in a dream. The man before him is the patriarch Jung of the Sun Woo clan, his father, whom he hasn't seen in 10 years. Jin finds himself in his younger body, confused by the situation. Still in a daze, his father tells him that his silence means he confesses to killing the third young master of the Dan clan, who is supposed to become his brother-in-law. Jin is shocked, wondering how he could have killed someone named Dan Hasang, his future brother-in-law. He remembers that Dan Hasang wasn't just anyone, but his only friend, though all of that happened over 10 years ago. Jin tries to clear his name, remembering he was drunk at the time and had no motive or even the strength to commit such a crime. In a horrifying moment, he realizes the terrible truth. He has traveled back in time, specifically to the day he was falsely accused of murdering his friend. With his hands tied, Jin replies that he remembers nothing. His answer enrages his father, who shouts in his face and calls him a fool, asking if that's all he has to say. The father desperately wonders how he will face the patriarch Jung of the Dan clan after this crime. While Jin's 3 brothers, Sun Woo Hyuk, and Gi, stand with smirks of satisfaction. The father threatens to kill Jin and send his corpse as appeasement, but the brothers suggest a crueler solution, sending him to the Dan clan alive but paralyzed so they can take their revenge and vent their anger on him. Jin, the 4th brother, makes another suggestion, sending Jin to the demonic front, pointing out that the alliance had requested someone from the clan's direct bloodline. Since Jin is doomed either way, sending him there would at least make him useful. The brothers immediately agree to this proposal, as it means none of them will have to go. It is explained that the demonic front is a border region established against the blood demon sect which has taken over the Eunan province. 10 years ago, the War of Blood and Righteousness broke out between the sect and the Maram alliance. And although the alliance barely managed to halt the sect's advance, they failed to reclaim Eunan. As a result, the demonic front was created and fighters were recruited to guard the border. Jin realizes to himself that this front has over time become a place where clan heirs are forcibly exiled. Although he would normally be considered too weak to be sent, this fabricated incident has given his brothers the perfect excuse to get rid of him. Jin deduces that this is the best possible scenario for his brothers, and that one of them must have set him up. Jin recalls that his father's decision to send him to the front is the same one he made in his previous life when he was 21, and that 2 people had visited him that night. His thoughts are interrupted by the arrival of a visitor, Sun-woo Yun-ha. She asks him worriedly how he is, and he replies that he is fine and asks about her. She says she is fine and assures him that she believes he is not the culprit. Jin remembers that in his past life, all he did was cry and thank her for her words. But this time, with his new awareness, he asks her why she is so certain of his innocence, which surprises her. Jin explains to her that her fiancé Dan Hasang was his only friend and he had no reason to kill him. He tells her they were drinking together face to face when he suddenly saw a sword that he wasn't holding plunged into his friend's back. Yan-ha is shocked and asks him why he didn't tell their father these details, to which he gives a shocking reply. Going to the front seemed like the best option. Jin explains his painful past to Yan-ha. After his mother's early death, he had to survive on his own without any family support. Although he was considered a genius due to his strong memory, he was forced to pretend to be an idiot to live. Over time, his true personality eroded due to this act, until he truly became a fool, a disgrace to the clan, who could do nothing but laugh foolishly when ridiculed. He lived like this for 21 years. He explains that in order to change, he must leave the clan and go to the front, where he hopes to meet his idol, Tempest Dragon, Sol Pong. As Yan-ha leaves, Jin notices that something is different this time. In the past, she had only comforted him. He wonders if her reaction has changed because he didn't cry in front of her this time. While lost in thought, he is surprised to see his father appear outside his cell. Jin realizes the change is not limited to his own behavior. His father's presence here at this time also seems different from his memory. He wonders anxiously if his change has begun to affect the entire course of events. Jin recalls that in his past life, when he begged his father to let him escape, the man did nothing but sigh and leave in silence. But in this new reality, his father surprises him with a direct question. Was he truly framed for the charge against him? Jin is stunned, wondering if his father overheard his conversation with Yun-ha and if there's a possibility he believed him. Even in his previous life, the father admits he always knew Jin was pretending to be a fool, but he never. The father asks for Jin's forgiveness, blaming himself for being a useless father who caused the ruin of his son's life. Jin stands bewildered by this transformation. He had always known his father as a passive person who never intervened to protect him from his brothers or their mothers. But he finds a justification for his father's past stance, realizing that the influence of his brothers' maternal families was so overwhelming that his father himself had to submit to them, and perhaps his distance was a form of mercy, especially since Jin had no support from his mother's side. The father asks his son if he has any requests. Jin seizes the opportunity and asks for permission to spend 1 day in the clan's archives. The father is surprised by this simple request. Jin explains that he is ashamed of his complete ignorance of his clan's martial arts and wants to learn at least a little before going to the front. But in truth, his plan was deeper. In his previous life, despite becoming Patriarch Jung, he didn't know any of the Sun-woo arts, forcing him to steal techniques from other clans. He now believes that if he can learn the 13 swords of Sun-woo, he will be able to build his strength much more quickly in this new life. The father doubts the possibility of mastering martial arts from a book in a single day, but Jin replies that it's better than nothing. The father agrees to his request, but adds a surprising condition. He tells Jin that training internal arts alone is dangerous, that he will teach him himself, and orders him to sit in the lotus position immediately. Jin complies with his father's order in a state of shock and confusion. The father begins to transfer his energy to his son, announcing he will pass on the primal infinity art to him, and starts reciting the verses for him to memorize. Jin realizes his father is teaching him the secret art that is only passed down to the patriarch Jung and his heir. Although this development should make him happy, Jin feels a strange and unsettling feeling as he receives this knowledge, wondering what this feeling is. Elsewhere, Jin's brothers protest vehemently against their father's decision to let that fool enter the archives, demanding he reconsider his decision. The father says that Jin dying uselessly on the front would tarnish the clan's name. The eldest brother tries to object, but the father silences them firmly, asserting that his decision is final. Jin appears, laughing secretly, thinking that one day in the archives won't change anything. But with a cunning and wicked smile, he thinks to himself that one day is more than enough to him for his plans. Inside the clan archive, Jin sets a clear goal for the day, not to master the martial arts, but to memorize everything in the archive by heart. Jin reveals why he was considered a genius in the past. He possesses a photographic memory that enabled him to survive in his previous life by copying his comrades' movements on the battlefield. He recalls that his commander later called this talent eidetic memory. Thanks to this ability, Jin is confident he can absorb everything in this library and vows to use this knowledge well. He decides to start by reviewing the primal infinity art he learned from his father, then move on to studying the clan's ultimate technique, the 13 Swords of Sun Wu. After a period of intense study, Jin collapses on the floor, completely exhausted, feeling like he's going to die from the strain. Although he managed to cram all the information into his head, he discovers he understood absolutely nothing of the complex 13 Swords of Sun Wu technique. He decides to go out for some fresh air, but falls onto the grass as soon as he steps outside, utterly exhausted, and considers. At that moment, his brothers approach him with a group of people, mocking him by saying, "A pig's nature never changes, as it just flops down wherever it pleases." A young lady in the group asks who he is, and the eldest brother replies that he is their shameful third brother. The brother continues his mockery, explaining to the lady that his father granted him a day to train before sending him to the demonic front tomorrow, but he is wasting his time sleeping, which surprises her. Jin got annoyed when he saw his brother speaking ill of him in front of the girls. The others try to convince the lady, called Lady Joy, not to pay attention to Jin, insisting that he is not worthy of her attention and is just someone going to the front to pay for his crime. Jin immediately recognizes this lady's identity. She is Yel Seo from the Heavenly Grace Sword Summit, the sword genius who emerged from the Jockey clan. He recalls hearing that she was visiting martial families for training and deduces that this is why she is here. His fourth brother, Gi, approaches him with a sarcastic look. Jin responds in his usual foolish manner, saying it's impossible to change in one day and asking them to leave him alone. Gi ignores his words and throws a powerful punch at Jin, who instinctively raises his arm to block it. Gi is surprised that Jin successfully blocked his punch. Jin feels a sharp pain in his arm from blocking just one punch and realizes he desperately needs to improve his weak body's condition quickly. The other brothers burst out laughing at Gi, mocking that a pig blocked his punch and that Gi will become the new disgrace of the clan. After Jin leaves, Gi flares up in anger at this insult and rushes towards Jin with a series of rapid attacks. Jin is forced to block the successive blows, and as he does, he feels that the movements Gi is using for the attack seem incredibly familiar, even though he has never seen them before. At the same time, Gi is shocked as he attacks, and Jin realizes with absolute certainty that the technique Gi is using to attack is one of the Sun Wu clan's techniques. The battle continues as Ji uses the triple cyclone strike technique. As Jin blocks the attack, his tongue slips and he shouts the word excellent, shocking, and amazing. Jin quickly reverts to his foolish act, claiming it was a slip of the tongue and laughingly urging his brother to hit him more. The other brothers take advantage of the situation to mock Ji, saying that Jin is enjoying his punches and asking for more. Ji's anger and humiliation grow and he screams for his death and continues his attack. But Jin was internally happy because this way he could finally understand the parts he couldn't grasp from just reading. Realizing that these were the final movements of the techniques, Ji uses another move called the defense-shattering kick, a technique that combines punches and kicks to exploit weaknesses. However, Jin notices that his brother failed to execute it perfectly, leaving himself wide open. Jin seizes this opportunity and delivers a counterattack to Ji, who winces in severe pain. Then Jin falls to the ground exhausted due to his size. Sun Wang comments that the pig was lucky and moves to attack Jin with the others. Before they can attack, Yel So intervenes, calling their actions despicable and asking how they can attack their injured brother who can barely stand. The brothers immediately back off in confusion, making excuses that they were just checking on their brother's condition. Jin thinks to himself that he too was despicable for letting such fools control him for all those years. Everyone leaves the place, and as soon as they are gone, Jin collapses on the ground again from exhaustion. Realizing he must get rid of this excess weight as soon as possible, Jin is surprised by the sudden appearance of his father, who tells him that he has worked hard and that he is proud of him. Jin sits speechless at these words. His father then confides a personal secret that out of his 4 marriages, only one was by personal choice, and that he used to think the other marriages were a duty to the clan, but he is no longer sure if that's true now. His father tells Jin he will practice with the sword for a bit, as he hasn't done so in a while, and advises him to rest before going back inside. The father begins to demonstrate his sword movements, and Jin immediately recognizes them as the legendary 13 swords of Sun Wu. Jin understands his father's intention. He is performing a personal demonstration of the 13 sword forms for him from the first to the last and then back again with increasing speed each time, to teach him the technique practically. Jin is overwhelmed with a deep sense of gratitude. Realizing his father is doing all of this for him, the scene returns to Jin inside the archives. Having finished reading all of his ancestors' journals, he notes that they contain valuable ideas and insights, but he doesn't understand them, which is expected since he didn't even understand the basic movements themselves from just reading. As Jin examines one of the journals in the archive, his eyes fall on something strange. The book cover seems thicker than usual on one side. Carefully and with concentration, he uses his fingers to pry open the edge of the thick cover, confirming his suspicion that something is hidden inside. He pulls an old manuscript from the cover and discovers that it describes a fighting style titled the 14th Form. Jin flips the manuscript over to discover a description of the 15th form on its back. He is utterly shocked as he holds the manuscript, realizing that his clan's technique, which supposedly consists of only 13 swords, may have additional secret forms. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the clan headquarters, Yan Ha sits before her mirror at night, which reflects her image as she thinks about Yel Sao's beauty. She holds a lock of her hair, looking displeased, and thinks that it just needs to grow a little longer. Suddenly, she hears her maids whispering happily, with one telling the other that the 4th young master, Ji, was injured after being hit by the 3rd young master, Jin. The other maid adds more sarcastic details, explaining that Ji was trying to show off in front of Lady Joy, but ended up fainting. The 2 maids burst out laughing, unaware that Sun Wu Yunha has heard everything. Sun Wu Yunha's face suddenly turns into a cold and frightening expression, and she sharply asks her maids what exactly they said, inquiring if it was Jin who caused Gi's injury. The maids confirm the story, trembling with fear. Sun Wu Yunha's anger intensifies as she thinks to herself, "How dare he?" Later, Soy hands a document to her friend Changyan, telling her this is the information she requested about the 3rd young master and that she bought it from local information brokers. Changyan thanks her, and Soil replies that there's no need for thanks between friends.
Soil asks about Chong-yan's sudden interest in the fat young man, admitting she was shocked to see his body. She adds sarcastically that his eyes were barely visible under the layers of fat, to which Chong-yan calmly replies that she saw him. Soil teases her, saying that Jin looks a bit like the teddy bear Chong-yan cherishes and asks if that's the reason for her interest in him. Chong-yan denies it, explaining that the move Jin used to take down his brother was impressive and sparked her curiosity about his past. Soil expresses her doubt that it was just luck, but admits that Chong-yan has always had a keen eye for discovering talent. Soil gives in to her friend's strange curiosity, then changes the subject, wondering how Chong-yan can read with her bangs covering her eyes. She scolds her for hiding her beauty, asking when she will finally move her bangs.
Chong-yan playfully asks if her friend would be happy if she did that, and when Chong-yan shows her excitement, Seal gently refuses, claiming she would feel jealous if Chong-yan got more attention. Seal laughs and expresses her happiness with their friendship, and Chong-yan reciprocates the feeling, saying that Seal is not like the rest of the Joki clan. The next morning, Jin stands ready to depart. His father and Yan-ha see him off, and the father advises him to serve well for the honor of the clan and to stay safe. Jin bows respectfully and makes a vow to his father that he, his son, will return after bringing pride and honor to the clan. On the morning of his departure, Jin thanks Yan-ha for coming to see him off at this early hour, and she replies that it's the least she can do for her brother, who is preparing for a long journey. Yan-ha hands him a bundle, explaining that it contains rice balls she made for him herself for the journey. Jin is deeply touched by this gesture and asks if she made them herself, which she confirms, though she can't guarantee they taste good. With a wide smile, Jin thanks her warmly, assuring her that she is the best and that he will enjoy them. After that, Jin announces his departure, mounting his horse with his escorts and leaving the place under the watchful eyes of his father and Yan-ha. A short while after they set off, Jin calls out to one of the escorts who was following him. The escort asks what the matter is, telling him it's not yet time to take a break. Jin realizes this man is the group leader, a wandering warrior named Zhang Gang, and notices the anxiety on his face, concluding that he fears Jin will cause trouble and refuse to complete the journey based on his bad reputation. Jin surprises the leader by announcing that he has decided to run from here all the way to Eunan. When he sees the leader's confusion, he clarifies that he will do it to lose him weight. Kang Song doubts Jin's ability to run a long distance with such a body, and tells him that while he respects his will, they have a contract, and running will cause a significant delay and financial losses. Jin asks about the fate of his horse. Kang Song replies that it is a purebred horse. Jin offers the leader to take the horse for himself, wondering if it would fetch a good price when sold. Kang Song confirms the horse is very valuable, and Jin thinks to himself that they were probably planning to take the horse for free anyway. But Kang Song surprises Jin with his honesty, admitting that the horse is worth a fortune and its value is far too great for him to take as payment. Jin apologizes for misjudging such an honest man. Jin explains his logic to the leader. He knows he won't get a fair price for the horse at the front, and keeping it might weaken his resolve to train, so he proposes a mutually beneficial deal. He will give them the horse, and in return, he asks for their help with Sohem matters along the way. Jang looks at Jin with new respect, realizing that the third young master is nothing like the rumors spread about him. Jang agrees to the deal, shaking hands with Jin and vowing that he and his men will do their best to help him as long as he is paid such a high price. Thus, Jin's journey begins by running a distance that takes 3 continuous days, even by horse. Jin knows it will be extremely difficult in his current physical state, but he sees this run as the nourishment that will allow him to be reborn. He renews his resolve to change his life this time, but his body quickly betrays him, and he starts vomiting from sheer exhaustion. One of the escorts asks him worriedly if he is doing this to avoid going, but Jin cannot answer.
After catching his breath, he gets up, announcing he has rested enough and is determined to continue. He ends up panting, shocked at how difficult running is for him. After less than 15 minutes of running, Jin completely collapses, feeling like he can't even lift a finger from exhaustion. Suddenly, he feels a hand offering him a handkerchief. He opens his eyes to see Chung-yan offering him a handkerchief to wipe the sweat from his face. Jin becomes extremely flustered and apologizes for his pathetic appearance in front of her. Chung asks him how he knew her Nahim, and he replies that he heard Lady Joy mention her Nahim the previous day and remembered it thanks to his strong memory. She tells him to keep the handkerchief as she has more. Jin takes the handkerchief, confused, as Chung-yan encourages him to keep up the hard work and tells him with a smile that she will be one of his supporters. After she leaves, the escorts gather around Jin in amazement, expressing their jealousy that he received a handkerchief from such a beautiful lady. Jin thinks to himself that, although her intention might not have been that, he can't deny that the gesture made him feel proud. Motivated by this encouragement, Jin gets up enthusiastically and calls for everyone to continue running. But shortly after, he vomits again from exhaustion. The escorts suggest they stop to eat before continuing. It occurred to the escorts that they would have to eat outdoors a lot from now on. They light a fire in the forest and sit down to eat. Jin asks to share their food, and the leader, Jang, asks him why he isn't eating the food his sister prepared for him. Jin replies with a laugh that she is not a skilled cook and what she made was inedible. The escorts burst into laughter, joking that whoever marries her is doomed. As they exchange jokes, Jin sinks into dark thoughts, realizing he is not destined to live peacefully with his family. He thinks about Yan Ha's actions, which were completely different from what he remembers, and how he had considered her his only family and cherished the looks of concern in her eyes in the past. But he now also remembers the unjustified looks of hatred and contempt he sometimes glimpsed in her eyes and had ignored. Jin realizes the bitter truth. Yan Ha hadn't changed. He was the one who was a fool in the past and failed to see her true nature. He concludes that she didn't really care about him and begins to suspect that she might be the one who killed Don Hassang. He feels sorrow because at the same time he understood his father's feelings and won one person to his side. He lost someone else he trusted. With renewed determination, Jin interrupts the escorts joking and asks to borrow a Dao sword. From that moment on, his journey turned into continuous training. He runs while on the move and trains during stops. Jin continues his arduous journey, turning it into a mobile training camp. He uses rest times to practice with the sword and the Dao, and reduces his sleep to refine his energy cultivation technique. As they get closer to the demonic front day by day, he couldn't afford to waste a single moment, for he knew that place was a true death trap, and he had to do his utmost if he wanted to survive. The leader, Zhang, notices this effort and tells Jin he has never in his life seen someone train with such obsession before. Zhang admits that at first he didn't expect Jin to last long, but now he feels ashamed of his preconceived judgment. Jin humbly replies that he is fighting desperately because he doesn't want to die. Suddenly, just as Jin was about to add something else, an arrow cuts through the air and hits the ground beside him, forcing him to duck quickly to avoid it. The escorts immediately draw their swords, wondering about the identity of the attacker who set this ambush for them. A group of bandits appears, and their leader scoffs at them for talking about honor. When they are about to die, the bandits surround the group and order them to throw down their weapons and surrender. Their leader, a huge man carrying a double-headed axe named Mak Gusum, steps forward and threatens to crush their skulls. Yang recognizes the bandit leader's Nahim with concern and whispers to Jin to escape on the horse if a fight breaks out because they won't be able to hold out for long. He knew that Masum was no ordinary bandit, but a true martial artist trained in authentic combat techniques. Jin, Makasum, agrees sarcastically, telling them the ransom is everything they own and orders them to strip naked and run away. As the bandits laugh, Yang insisted that Jin hurry up and mount his horse as there was no more time. Jin steps forward and shouts at them, declaring he is the third son of the Sun Wu clan and asks if they wish to be annihilated. Mok Gu scoffs at Jin's claim, and Jin shouted, challenging Mok Gu, asking if he dared to attack him, as if digging his own grave. Mok Gusum doubted his words, but Jin insisted he was from the Sun Wu clan and presents his clan emblem as proof. Makasum asks him to throw the emblem to him so he can verify it himself. Makasum ordered Jin to come closer, warning him that he would be beaten if he didn't. Jin agrees to throw the emblem after approaching him. And as the emblem flies through the air and Mok Gom catches it, the leader gets busy looking at the engraving on it. Taking advantage of this moment of distraction, Jin suddenly lunges forward and stabs the bandit leader. The bandit leader, Mok Gusum, screams in pain after being stabbed, and his men are shocked and confused. They shout that their leader has been ambushed and try to stop Jin. Quickly, Jin grabs a Dabo sword from one of the bandits and rushes towards them. Jin moves with surprising agility and grace, taking down several attackers who did not expect this sudden and skillful assault. Upon seeing Jin's unexpected prowess, the leader, Jen, yells at his men and orders them to attack and support the young master.
The situation turns completely, and the panicked bandits begin to scream and flee, calling Jin a butcher. During the fight, Jin feels his body and spirit cohere alive, and a calm smile appears on his face, realizing that his entire being rejoices at returning to the familiar atmosphere of battle. The battle ends quickly, and Jin and his escort stand victorious amidst the bodies of the bandits. After the adrenaline subsides, Jin dramatically collapses to the ground, claiming he's going to die from exhaustion. The escorts look at him with astonishment and admiration, and Jang asks him if he is an immortal elder who has been reborn in a young man's body. Jin laughs and denies this idea, pointing out that someone with such power wouldn't collapse from exhaustion after such a short battle. Jang agrees with him, but adds that killing with such skill and without hesitation is not something a person of Jin's age can typically do. Also, seeing him lying comfortably amidst the corpses makes him think strange things. Jang also asks if he saw the sword aura, the sword key emanating from his sword. But Jin dodges, claiming his internal energy is only equivalent to 20 years of training, and that what he saw were just after images resulting from the illusory 13 swords of Sun Wu technique. Jang praises the power of the noble clan sword arts and expresses his chagrin that at 40 years old he has only accumulated 20 years of internal energy. Jin asks him about the cultivation method he practices, and Kang-sung replies shyly that he practices the 6 harmonies technique, the only method he was able to obtain. Jin realizes this method is third-rate and can be easily found, but he admires Kang-sung's ability to achieve this level of energy using such a weak technique. Jin feels sympathy for Jang, whose efforts have not fully paid off because he couldn't find a suitable method, which reminds him of himself in the past when he had to copy and beg for techniques from others. The days of running and non-stop training continue until they finally reach the Eunan province. After a journey that took 9 full days to celebrate their last night together, Jin invites his escorts for a drink at his expense. The escorts cheer for their young master's generosity and begin to talk about their future plans after this mission is over. During their celebration at the inn, one of the escorts talks about his desire to retire from the life of fighting for the sake of his wife and children. Young jokes with him, saying that wanderers shouldn't settle down, but their conversation is suddenly interrupted by an unexpected person entering the inn. One of the escorts recognizes the newcomer. It's the young lady they met before, Chong-yeon. Jin is surprised to see her and hurries to greet her enthusiastically, expressing his amazement at meeting her here again. He invites her to join them at their table, but before he can finish his sentence, she has already sat down, which elicits a shy laugh from him. The leader, Jong, welcomes her and offers to order food, but she tells them she will order later, then drops a bombshell, announcing that she plans to volunteer to go to the front.
Jin is in complete shock, as are Jin's escorts, who were in the inn, who ask her with disapproval why she would want to go to such a dangerous place that even famous warriors avoid, especially since she is a woman going alone. When one of her escorts asks her the reason, she remains silent. Ch.1 suddenly changes the subject, turning to Jin and noting that he has lost a lot of weight. Jin laughs and says training and practice are the reason, and his escorts confirm that he has become very thin. The leader, Jang, praises his tremendous efforts, adding that he even managed to skillfully defeat bandits on their way here. Another escort adds that after losing weight, Jin has become very handsome. After this conversation, Ch.1 excuses herself to step out for a moment.
While the escorts encourage Jin to have his first cup, Jin happily accepts the offer. Outside, Ch.1 sighs and thinks that Jin is adorable. Her inner thoughts reveal that she finds his face strikingly similar to her cherished doll, Mandu. She remembers his spontaneous combat move and the past of his life she discovered, and admits that all of this sparked her curiosity. She thinks about his unrealistic endurance and his chubby form and decides that she can't simply let him be killed by the demons of the blood sect. She reaches a strange conclusion since she was the first to witness his hidden cuteness. It is her duty as a pioneer to protect him. Thus, her true reason for volunteering to go to the front is revealed. After Ch.1 decided that Jin no longer needed her protection and that she didn't want to worry his family, she decides to return the next day. But as she is about to leave, she hears a terrifying scream for help coming from nearby and rushes in the direction of the sound. Wondering about the source of the sound, she is suddenly attacked from the darkness by a huge person with a muscular build and long white hair. Ch.1 barely dodges the attack. Noticing that the attacker isn't thinking about defending himself at all, but is focused solely on attacking, she prepares to end the fight with a decisive blow and unleashes a series of rapid strikes with her sword. But she is shocked to see that her attack had no effect on the assailant. The attacker suddenly appears in front of her and delivers a powerful blow that knocks her to the ground, leaving her in a daze from his strength. The attacker stands over her with a crazed expression, and she initially thinks he is just a pervert. The man attacks her again, so she unleashes another more powerful sword technique, but once again it has no effect, which drives her to despair. In the midst of the battle, one of Jin's escorts arrives to help her. The escort rushes to attack the man from the front to protect her, but she screams, trying to stop him. The attacker stops the sword with his bare body with ease, and the escort was surprised when he realized his sword had shattered against the enemy's tough body. Then the assailant brutally kills the escort. While in a state of shock, she rushes at the attacker and tries to strike him from behind. However, the assailant easily caught her sword with his bare hands. Ch.1 felt fear after realizing she was facing a monster, not a human. Another person intervened at the right moment, delivering a blow that hit the attacker and pushed him away from her. Jin and the rest of his escorts arrive from the inn after hearing the commotion. The leader, Jang, asks Ch.1 if she is okay, and she replies yes, but looks sadly at the body of the escort, Yang-ga. Jin tries to pull Jang inside, but Kong-sung refuses, pointing out that this monster is the one who killed Yang-ga. Jin insists they can't face him outside and that they should go into the inn because he will follow them anyway. The attacker lets out a deafening roar and rushes towards them, and Ch.1 suddenly stood in front of Jin, determined to protect him no matter the cost. Jin orders everyone to get back to the inn quickly, as he has recognized the identity of this dangerous attacker. In the midst of the chaos, the attacker strikes Ch.1's sword and sends her flying forcefully. Jin manages to catch her at the last moment while the attacker screams hysterically. He puts his finger to his lips, signaling her to stay quiet. As he protects her, he notices that the attacker's eyes have been closed this whole time, leading him to a shocking conclusion. This monster is blind. At that moment, Jin hears Jen's voice from the inn. But Jin realizes with fear that the real danger lies inside, with the inn's guests.
His nightmare comes true as the attacker storms the inn and begins to savagely attack everyone, turning the place into a scene of slaughter and screams. Kang Sung confronts the attacker, but he can't hold his ground against him. Jin arrives and strikes the attacker hard, sending him flying away from Jang. Jin orders everyone to remain calm and fall back, but terror grips the guests who continue to scream and call for help. Jin realizes that this noise is further agitating the attacker, who yells that no one will get out alive. The attacker rose at once, so Jin warned them that he would attack them again. In a desperate attempt to control the situation, Jin starts shouting and running himself, flipping a table to create a loud noise to attract the monster's attention. The plan works. The attacker turns towards the source of the sound and orders everyone to be silent. Jin takes advantage of the quiet moment and kicks a chair in another direction to continue distracting the attacker, who follows the sound. The attacker turns in the direction of the sound. Jang understands Jin's plan and helps silence one of the panicked escorts. As Jin looks for anything else he can use to make a sound, Chung-yan intervenes. She leaps over the attacker and launches a powerful surprise attack against him, but the attacker easily parried the attack and threw her away. Then Chung-yan lands gracefully and rushes towards him once more. Chung-yan clashed fiercely with the attacker, shouting at Jin to tell everyone in the inn to remain silent. Jin explains to them that this creature locates its enemies by sound alone, and he warns them not to make any noise, not even a whisper or a breath. Everyone in the inn quickly covers their mouths in fear. Jin realizes that just staying silent won't be enough, because if the attacker can't hear anything, he will start using his powerful sense of smell. Jin concludes that he must end this fight before that happens. He decides he needs to properly attract the monster's attention and seize his chance while all of the attacker's focus is on Chong-yin. Jin forms a quick plan. He will attract the attacker's attention with a sound before getting close to him. He throws several sets of coins in different directions inside the inn, creating a commotion everywhere. His idea was that if sounds come in him from all directions at the same time, the attacker would become confused and unable to pinpoint a single target, which would give him an opportunity to approach him. The plan succeeds, and the attacker begins to move erratically, destroying things around him. Confused by the multiple sounds, Jin takes this opportunity and moves cautiously, approaching the disoriented attacker. He knew that any mistake would be fatal, and that a single touch from this monster's claws would be enough to tear his weak body apart. But just as he is about to make his next move, one of the bystanders lets out an involuntary hiccup from sheer terror. In an instant, the attacker stops and turns his head directly towards the source of the small sound, staring in Jin's direction with a frightening gaze.